say anything. They escorted her. I saw a deputy escort you in too, so I understand that. All right. All right. Uh, we're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order for, let's see, today is the 9th of September. Chatham County Board of Education regularly scheduled meeting. Um, do I have a motion to go into closed session for the items listed on the agenda? Got it. All right. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Thank you. Gotcha. Okay. You got them in order, don't you? So we're good. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Vice. put ourselves back in open session. Um, Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it very much as we do the business of the schools here. And I will turn it over to Ms. Wilson.
So we unfortunately in this country had another school shooting recently, and it's becoming all too common, but it will never ever be normalized. Um, and so when any of us hear, it's a chilling thing to hear about. And for those of us that have children, grandchildren, kids we love, work in the schools, it's an extra level of ache and heart and stomach thinking about the pain that people are in um, down in Georgia, and also the fear that we have here. So I just, as this moment of silence that we have in every meeting, want to take a special moment to think about the two students and the two staff people that were taken from the people that love them down in Georgia, and all those who were injured and who will be traumatized for many years. So let's give them some extra thought as we have this moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's all rise for our Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
I
pledge
pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to
to
the
the
flag
flag
of
of
the
the
United
United
States
States
of
of
America
America
and
and
to
to
the
the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and Ms. Bridenstine with a second. All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Do we have a motion to approve the personnel agenda? Got Ms. Turner with a second. All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign? And do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Turner with the motion, Mr. Ham with the second. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Thank you. Dr. Jackson, Superintendent's announcements and comments, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, and thank you for um, the work of this board and the support that we continue to get. I'm excited to share this one. It's an opening of school and lots of good things going on. I'm going to go quickly. Our child nutrition folk are off and running, and they're having their regular inspections, and so we're getting a lot of 100% for our safe serves, and I love to celebrate with them as well. So you'll see that. So if you're in a school, please celebrate those individuals who have just absolutely done the work of making sure that our kids are well fed and taken care of every day, and doing so in a sanitary and clean place in our schools every single day. I do not visit a school without visiting the cafeteria and the kitchen. Our next one is I was invited to meet with parents with our Hispanic liaison in Siler City. Great evening, great conversation, and I was very, very pleased to engage that conversation. And we spent well over an hour, hour and a half, just really working to talk about ways that we might partner, talk about ways that we can support students, and talk about what the expectations are for our students. So I was excited about that. So I want to thank them publicly for inviting me. Our next one, our principals, new principals have come along, and Miss Beck down at Virginia Cross Elementary School had her meet and greet with popsicles with the principal. So you get them how you can. The next item is we are so very excited to be able to launch again our teen court, and Volunteers for Youth program will be coming back. And so we've been able to, we've had to go without that program for a couple of years. And so I want to thank Ms. Fowler and her work in the community with our JCPC and our courts and all of those folk who have put the resources in place to ensure that we can put that program back in place. It really helps our students understand, make bad decisions, have good choices and consequences within their community, and move on. And when we can avoid engaging them in the criminal justice system, it's possible. We can't always do that, but when we can, and it's an issue that the teen court can assist with, we're grateful for that. They're looking for volunteers. Our students will be volunteers as bailiffs and juries and all of that kind of stuff. So keep your ears open for that. And if you know someone who's interested in that, please encourage them to do so. The next meeting was Partners for Racial Justice meeting. This is a community group that came in looking for opportunities to continue to engage us in the work that they're doing here in the Pittsboro community, and a great meeting there. Beginning teacher orientation. As you can see, a nice full room. We were so excited about them, and they spent a great deal of time. What was so exciting was, again, the number of Chathamites who are returning home to teach in their homeschool system. I've asked PR to pull that together for us at some point later on this fall so that we can celebrate those individuals who have been consumers of the work, and now they're coming back to share in their community. There's no greater celebration than that. The next meeting is our meeting with our retired educators. Every single year, they call us and say, we want to sit down and meet and talk about how we can help our beginning teachers. And so our Retired Teachers Association they have a heart for beginning teachers. They jump in and work with them. And their goal is they don't want to scare them out of the profession. They want to love them into the profession. And that's amazing. And so we appreciate them. A lot of them have many, many years of work here in Chatham County Schools, and they just want to give back. And they have a real strong sense of wanting to preserve the profession for this next generation of teacher, and we're excited about the work that they're doing there. The next one is we had a great day. The senior staff, including the CEO from Blue Cross Blue Shield, brought their entire leadership team here to Chatham County. They wanted to look at the things that we were doing to support students and to support the mental health of our students here in Chatham County. And so I was pleasantly surprised that there were individuals who are on the board of directors for Blue Cross Blue Shield who live right here in Chatham County, who were really, really champions for the work that we're doing to support our students, particularly around the daybreak teletherapy support that we're providing our students, the work that we do with Renaissance, the work that we do with parents around supporting them, as well as the work we do with our staff with our EAP programs and things like that. So it was a great day of sharing that we had there. The next item is our bus driver orientation. We kicked off at Northwood. Great day there to celebrate with them. I am pleased to tell you that this year we have a full complement of bus drivers. And we have our largest training class right now in progress that we've had in several years. So thank you all for those who pushed bus drivers to us. Thank this board for your support and the resources that it took to get bus drivers to cover every run. That does not mean that there won't be a late bus, and it doesn't mean that a bus won't break down. It does mean, however, that we have a better chance of getting someone to fill in when we need them to do so. And the next item is Pittsboro Rotary had their Education Appreciation Luncheon, and we want to thank them for celebrating our educators here in the community. The next item is, unfortunately, you heard the moment of silence. We have to be ready. Typically we would not share this, but I wanted families to understand that there's training that goes on all of the time. Unfortunately, we live in a day and time where we have to be ready, and we don't get the opportunity to be wrong on the day that we need this to happen. So I know while it looks scary, our law enforcement officials are constantly working to know what schools look like when they need to get in them. They need to know where things are. They do their training in our buildings. Now, there are no students in this building at the time, but we allow them to use the buildings to do their full training so that in the event they have to enter a building on that day that we don't want them there, then they know they know the building intimately and can do some things, and they've coordinated their training. The next item was convocation. It was wild. That's all I'll say. We had a great time. we brought convocation home this year. It was held at Seaforth, and we were able to get everyone into the gymnasium there and celebrate the profession. Um, that is the goal of convocation, to celebrate our profession. There are enough people out there who say negative things about public school and what teachers do and can't do and should do. This was our day to just celebrate the profession and to welcome our team back. If you work in corporate, when I worked in corporate, we had the annual meeting. So this is the equivalent of the annual meeting, bringing everybody together to just say we are one Chatham, we celebrate, and it was a great day. Um,
And the neatest thing was, of all the years, and Gary and I have done it forever, this was the best speakers that we ever had. We always have a speaker, and there's usually some highfalutin, educated person, and this, that, and the other. This was without a doubt the absolute best I've ever seen, because we used our own students to highlight and surprise a teacher that has made a difference in their lives. And that was pretty moving. It really was. And you fly somebody in and they do these speeches all the time. That's one thing. And they get you jacked up. These kids took the cake. They really did.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. I thought I was the speaker, but no, it's about the students. The students were amazing.
I just saw the 6 chairs and it made me think of that.
They were amazing, and I will be very, very candid with you. We've heard from teachers. We try to tailor this program to meet the needs of teachers, and I've heard over and over again from the teachers the exact same thing, that the kids made the difference this year. There's nothing more humbling than to have students look you right in the eye and say, you made a difference. And no matter, we always look for, we can find the negative things about kids, but I am bullish on this next generation, y'all. These kids are going to do amazing things because they don't miss the small stuff. And so I was excited about that. I'm going to get, next one is the Wells Fargo Cup. Seaforth High School won the Wells Fargo Cup, which is a pretty great for sportsmanship and all the work that they've done to build their athletic program across the state. Then my favorite day of the year is my day to ride the school bus with Gael. Gael is a student at Siler City Elementary School who told me that he's going to have a great school year, and he wanted to make sure that he didn't have to speak English all day. He wanted to show his classmates some Spanish, which was great, and so he was an amazing friend to ride with. Excited about coming to school, excited about big school, and excited about that big yellow bus. So it was fun there. And then the Yonder Pouch pilot program has launched, and we're learning as we go. I will say to you that we are checking in on that program daily, weekly, almost hourly sometimes. Our teachers have given us positive reports. We've heard positive reports from our students. We've also heard some concerns and some challenges, which we expect. It's a pilot. That's what we want to do. We want to learn. But as I said, and I'll share with you in just a minute, the goal here is not for everybody to be happy. The goal here is to give our teachers their classrooms back so that they can teach in a place that's distraction-free, and that we can ensure that everybody's there safely, and that we can do this in a way that doesn't take those phones from our students and have teachers holding them and losing them, and that students maintain the possession of their phone. We just do it in a way that they put it away during the school day and keep it from distracting them. Our back to school nights were great. You see some pictures there of the 2 back to school, or 3 back to school nights, and our students are back in. They're doing great things. Our teachers, the routines have been set, and we're doing great work. We're excited about what this school year has in store. So that's my report for the power of connection. Our next item is our Excellence and Opportunity Champion. I'm going to ask Mr. Poston to come up and present that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Board, Superintendent Jackson, Dr. Jackson. I am Chris Boaston, Senior Executive Director for Excellence Opportunity, and tonight we are here to recognize Miss Amy Doty as our Excellence Opportunity Champion. Miss Doty? Miss Doty is our first principal nominated, and we honor her and salute her tonight. Our Excellent Opportunity Champion aligns with Strategic Plan Priority 1, Curriculum and Innovation, and Strategic Plan Priority 3, Faculty and Staff. Ms. Doty exemplifies our commitment each and every day to students by reducing the predictability of who succeeds and who fails, interrupting practices that negatively impact diverse student populations, and by working to cultivate the unique gifts and talents for every student at her school. Her nominee wrote, Ms. Doty has worked to make space for all learners at Margaret B. Pollard Middle School. She has empowered her staff to lead and support students, recognizing their unique gifts and talents. She works to create space where students' experiences are honored and to have them navigate school culture. She uses data as a springboard for her conversations with both staff and students, and she has embraced avid instructional strategies and created an avid elective in her middle school to support her students' academic success. Ms. Doty, we appreciate all you do.
It's okay. It's usually me that does that, so it's all right.
Mr. Chair, our next item is just a brief update on the implementation of Yonder, and I wanted to share a few things with you that we have, just to remind everyone, we implemented this in feeder patterns for Seaforth High School and for George Matthews. So at Chatham Middle, George Moses Horton, and at Pollard. So those schools have implemented, and again, we are learning as we go. From day one, we have been very clear about the implementation in the schools. We worked this summer to make sure that our principals were engaged. We truly tried to ensure that there were opportunities throughout where we will just kind of stop and bring you updates. But this will be kind of baseline for you. We have some things that we have pulled together very quickly so that we can establish the baseline of why we're doing this. I shared with our teachers that the goal here is very simple. I want to give them their classrooms back. You all have sat in this room and you've had parents come in this room. You've had teachers in our teacher advisory who have said the phones are a distraction and that it's very difficult for me to do this work. And tonight we're going to share academic outcomes, and everybody wants us to have the optimum outcomes. And to do that, we have to create optimum environments for our kids. And so with that, I would say to you that this is a transformative time for us. We came to this board and we asked for your support to do this, and we thank you for that. It is a pilot. And so with that, we are going to learn. I will say to you that I am so very proud of our students. I'm so very proud of our teachers. And I'm really proud of our parents. I know it's got to be, it's different, and they have questions. But for the most part, I would say the majority have really been very, very supportive of the work. We put together, so that I don't talk this through, put together a very quick video of the implementation where we are. And then I'm going to close out, I'm going to ask Mr. Blyce to just share. I had Mr. Blyce also talk with our support organization that helps us with our school safety work. And he'll give you just a very brief piece of that, because I wanted to make sure that we were lined up with that so that there were no questions about, one, safety. There's no questions about pedagogy. There's no questions that will be left dangling about how we've operationalized this. And finally, I'm going to say this. I know that, well, no, I'll save that. Why don't we start the video? Okay.
let's explore how Yonder pouches are transforming our educational environments for the better through the implementation of phone-free classrooms. Improved classroom environment. Teachers report a more positive and respectful atmosphere when students are less preoccupied with their phones, and teachers can focus on the task at hand, educating, not competing for the class's attention. With fewer disruptions and more engaged students, there's a positive shift in the classroom, making it easier to teach and learn. Enhanced focus and engagement. Yonder pouches help students stay focused. By temporarily securing phones in their pouches, students can concentrate and actively participate in lessons. Less screen time means more face-to-face interaction and engagement, leading to a more productive classroom environment and better academic performance. Increased social interaction. Without phones as a barrier, students engage more with each other, collaborate better on group projects, and build stronger relationships with their peers. This allows students to develop essential social skills that are crucial for the future success in college and the workforce. Taking responsibility for your education. Knowing that their phones will be secured, students learn to manage their time and focus more on their studies without external distractions. This fosters a sense of accountability and helps students develop better habits for managing their coursework responsibly. Student and staff safety. Most importantly, the use of cell phones in a school setting can have a negative impact on a student's mental and physical health. Cell phones are often used to make threats of violence towards school communities. These threats require extended time to investigate. Social media is often used for cyberbullying, threats toward individuals, and instigating fights. The use of a cell phone during a crisis situation can inhibit the student's ability to stay focused on listening to safety directives, finding a safe space, and staying hidden. Students will be able to make contact with parents once it is safe to do so. Yonder offers a range of benefits, from improved focus and reduced distractions to increased social interaction and a safer school environment. By creating a space where students can truly connect with their learning and each other, Yonder pouches are making a positive impact on education. If you would like to learn more about Yonder pouches and their benefits, you can visit our website at chatham.k12.nc.us and under Resources, click Yonder Pouch Implementation.
That is Miss Emily Emmerich over there. That's her work, and she did it in 2 days because somebody asked her to do it. I would ask, y'all give her a hand because that was very good. Again, there's no magic to this. And I want to say to you that um, I'm very open to learning. And we're at the very beginning of this, and we don't know what we don't know. But what I do know is when a teacher walks up to you and says, I don't know where I was on this. I'm not sure. They're very honest with me. Not sure where I was going to be on this. But can I just be very honest with you? I can tell you that for the first time in 4 years, I've seen my students' eyes. That stopped me in my tracks. Because I think we've forgotten that she said, all I've seen of kids in the last 4 years is this. And you walk down the halls and they're running into each other because of this. And we're not taking their phones away. We're helping them manage this. So, and it was funny, I've learned that in some of our places in RTP tech firms, you cannot take your phone. You have to lock your phone up to go to work because of proprietary things in the office. So I learned that was a new piece. But I'm going to ask Mr. Blyce to give a real quick, and then we'll be done with that.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Jackson, after the parent meeting that we had over at Seaforth, spoke with Dr.
Seaforth High School is our largest deployment, and they're able to unlock over 1,000 phones in less than 3 minutes, 90 seconds. Yeah, and they're still timing every day. So it's not. You saw the kids walking. That was an actual, just tap and go. So they have to be able to do that to get out of the Beyonce concert that fast. I mean, you got to get to your car.
They tell with the speed of getting their phones back.
That's right. So it does. So we wanted to share that. That's baseline. We will begin to update the board. We will not update monthly, but we will update periodically. And so we thank the board for your support. We're going to learn as much as we can. And at the end, we'll ask, we'll survey and decide what you want to do next. We've already had other schools ask, can we go? And we're being very cautious. Power of one.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Dr. Amanda Moran, the Assistant Superintendent for Academic Services and Instructional Support. And currently, I'm also teaming with our PR department while we're in transition. The Power of One recognizes an individual who has a powerful impact on shaping the direction of someone else's life. Each month, we recognize one of these individuals at our Board of Education meeting. Recipients receive a Power of One award plaque, a small token of appreciation from local businesses, and nominations can come from community members, parents, staff, or even students. Any staff member, both certified or classified, can be recognized, and you can find that link on our website. The Power of One for August was given to the Chatham County Board of Commissioners, County Manager, and Board of Education members at the 2024 Back to School Convocation Ceremony. The event took place on August 23rd at Seaforth High School. The recognition was given to honor the collaboration between these elected officials who support our students and our staff. This collaboration resulted in unanimous support of county and school district budgets that increased supplement for all staff, made a classified staff salary adjustment, and supported other operational and programmatic increases. We are very fortunate to have these dedicated individuals supporting public education in Chatham. They really do exemplify One Chatham.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. We even got Dr. Walston to stand up. I'm impressed with that there. We're good, but thank you. We appreciate everything. And we somehow our superintendent got
system, law enforcement was at the school in 2 minutes, 120 seconds, and it helped to prevent a more tragic situation. Now, this is my last year in high school, but my little sister has just entered her freshman year at Seaforth. And if anything like what happened in Georgia or any other school in the past were to happen at Seaforth, I would want a system like this to ensure that she has the best possible chance of being able to make it out. That's my concern, really. And I'm gonna say this just because I went through the meeting minutes and I saw that there was an estimated $100,000 dent in spending on yonder pouches, and the system that Appalachia High School had is called Crisis Alert System. It's designed by Centegix. It has cost $8,000 per school every year, which is relatively inexpensive, and as we've seen, has been proven to work. On student safety, just real quick, I'd like to say this for all the parents in the room who are concerned about texting their children in case of an emergency. That is not what you want to do. I've been in false alarm situations where misinformation can spread very, very quickly, and it makes everything a much bigger deal than it has to be. And it can put students in a lot more danger than they need to be in. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Next up, Nancy Hernandez.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Nancy Hernández.
My name is Nancy Hernandez.
Tengo 21 años viviendo en el condado de Chatham,
I've been living in Chatham County for 21 years.
por lo cual tengo un hijo de 16 años en la escuela Jordan Matthews
I have one son, 16-year-old, who is at Jordan Matthews,
y una niña de 9 años en la escuela de Salt City Elementary.
and a daughter, 9 years old, who's at Siler City Elementary.
El motivo de estar aquí es para darle mis más sinceros agradecimientos al Dr. Jackson
The reason for being here tonight is to give my very sincere thanks to Dr. Jackson
por estar presente en la reunión que tuvimos en el Vínculo Hispano,
for coming to the meeting that we had at the Vínculo Hispano,
ya que fue de mucho interés donde tratamos temas muy importantes para nuestros hijos.
It was very interesting, and we talked about many topics that were of importance to our children.
Y cómo poder seguir trabajando juntos para el bienestar de ellos, y por eso nos encantaría tener un comité de padres.
And we were looking for ways that we could continue working together for our children, for their well-being, and we would love to have a group, a committee of Spanish-speaking parents
Que trabajen con la junta directiva.
that works with the board.
Y con mucho orgullo le entregaremos una tarjeta y un broche del Vínculo Hispano
And with great pride, we would like to give a card and a pin from the Vínculo Hispano
que usted pueda portar
that you can wear
como símbolo de apoyo a los padres y a nuestra organización.
as a symbol of our support and from the parents and from our organization.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He was in one of the pictures.
Julie Ricker.
I'm Julie Ricker, and I'm speaking tonight to share my gratitude list for all the things I feel which our community owes our district leaders and school board members as we begin another school year. First of all, thank you for your bold budget request to the county commissioners last year that resulted in a significant local supplement pay increase for our teachers. No doubt this sent a clear message to the Chatham County teachers that they are valued, and that hopefully is resulting in fewer staffing challenges at our schools. Secondly, thank you for identifying and accessing and supplementing funds that are allowing all Chatham County school students to receive universally free breakfast and lunch meals. How wonderful go hungry during the school day, and that no school should be burdened with excessive meal debt at the year's end. Thank you also for rolling out Go Guardian and Yonder Pouch pilot programs to help our students be more engaged during the school day and less distracted by their phones and their laptops. I am excited to see what positive outcomes these initiatives will bring for teachers and students as they interact more with each other and the content they're learning instead of their screens. Thank you for investing in Avid and rolling it out in a greater number of to a greater number of students across the county each year. I'm already seeing the help it's giving my seventh grader with the clear, consistent organizational skills that are being reinforced in each of his classes. And I'm hopeful these habits will well serve him in years to come and mean far fewer loose papers in the blackboard. I added this and when I was reminded that I thank you so much for your careful planning and your collaboration with RSM and with Chatham law enforcement so that you are well prepared for any kind of emergency that we face at our schools. It was really hard this week for my daughter to come home and describe her lockdown drill, but we had a wonderful conversation about what that means for her safety and her well-being. So thank you for that. And finally, I want to thank you for your recognition that our schools and students and the staff within them are far more than the state report card grades that are stamped on them each year. I know Chatham County has much to celebrate in terms of student achievement and growth that will be highlighted from the recently released state performance grade report. However, I am keenly aware that our schools with low letter grades are filled with talented, capable, hardworking students and teachers from which school scores from a single assessment on a single day do not reflect. I appreciated Dr. Jackson's comments that I read in a recent Ed and C article. Quote, "Our district makes an effort to recognize there are high-performing students in every school, regardless of low-performing status. In Chatham County schools, we avoid labeling schools as low-performing. Instead, we identify them as schools in need of support. We collaborate with these schools to create targeted plans, leveraging their strength and best practices. So thank you for the many ways you show that you center students and teachers when making decisions for our district. With this kind of focus on what is best for kids and the wise and positive, creative, and professionals who work with them, I know we can have a good school year to come. Thank you."
Thank you. And I'm having trouble with first name. I can't tell. Powell, is it Stephanie? Okay. That's okay. Not a problem.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Powell. I am a Chatham County resident, a public school supporter, and the grandmother of a Pollard student, my granddaughter having graduated from Seaforth. I'm following Julie Ricker, who has thanked you for so many of the positive actions you have implemented and has been able to list every single one. I concur with every word she said. However, I will not address specifics. What I want to comment on and thank you for is the overriding spirit of the board, Superintendent Jackson, and the administration. I've attended many Chatham County Board of Education meetings. I've been impressed by the opportunities you have created for such a diverse school population despite the severe funding deficiencies and interference by those who want to impose their own fears and agenda on the schools. I have concluded that your ability to pivot with each challenge is due to your spirit, your focus on doing right by the Chatham County students, teachers, and staff. I admire your determination, your resilience, your resourcefulness, and your creativity in facing the many challenges of public schools, our schools, today. I'm confident that this spirit will survive as you continue to dig deeply, do the right thing, and find a way to support our students and teachers, even when it means rearranging the pieces of the puzzle to do so. As I watch the students walk by my house on the first day of school, walking either to their schools or their buses, along with their parents, sometimes grandparents, siblings, and of course their dogs, I thought to myself that they are in good hands. We look forward to a new school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move along to information items. Item A, 2023-2024, accountability results overview and school support plans overview, and Dr. Moran and Ms. Reed-Closty, please.
Well, good evening again. We are excited to share with you our previous year accountability results. And just an item of note is that we received this information and we were allowed to view that and go public as of September 4th when it was approved by the State Board of Education. So we've had a short amount of time to analyze this. We don't get reports that compare us to other places. We have to hand mine all of that. So what we have this evening is kind of a short overview, and we'll continue to mine, and we will be publicizing our annual accountability booklet that we do that has information from each school as well as overarching information for our district. So we'll have more comparables across our region and state as we're able to dig into that data. If you can look at the various attachments, I'll just share with you the files that you have there so you know what's there. We have our press release and all of the links and information that was sent out to our press there for our public to see as well as the board. We have information about our school support plans, which we'll talk about in a moment, and we have a sample of the one from Chatham Middle School. We also have an overarching document for support plans that shows the process that would be used at each school for support plans. And then we also have a link to our presentation, which we'll dig into now. You'll go ahead to the next slide. So a couple of things we'll be sharing with you this evening. We'll go over what the accountability model is in the various areas that we are seeing data for. We will go over the school and district information for each of those areas. We'll share with you some of our successes and opportunities for improvement, as well as some of our action steps that are already in place for that work. And then we will also end with sharing with you the draft of our support plan structure. The state of North Carolina does not require us to do this until about November, which we think is a little crazy to think that we would not be starting support for our students, our schools until then. Particularly the support plan that we will dig into at greater length today is the one for Chatham Middle School, so you can see the work that's already in place for that school. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Reed-Closty for the next piece.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Jackson. My name is Darlene Reed-Closty. I'm the Director of Accountability and Student Information Systems. So, of course, we always want to start this presentation out with some definitions. There are a lot of acronyms, of course, in education that we love to throw around. So the first thing that we'll be delving into tonight is the school performance grade. The state of North Carolina, in accordance with federal guidelines, determines this school performance grade by giving an integer to 80% based on student achievement and their proficiency on state level exams, and then 20% dedicated to the growth. These numbers are combined, created an integer, put on a scale, and then given a letter grade. And we'll kind of dive into that a little bit later. The next thing that we'll be talking about, I'm not done with those sorry, is performance composite scores. When we see that word performance, that really is just the test scores. So back again to those state assessments. Grade level proficiency, or GLP, is defined as students that have achieved a certain level on the EOG or EOCs, and of course are end of grade assessments, and they have scored either sufficient understanding, thorough understanding, or comprehensive understanding, so level 5 being the highest score that a student can attain. And then we have a college and career ready score, which is a percentage of students who scored either a 4 or a 5. So again, either have a thorough understanding or a comprehensive understanding. The school performance grades, there's an elementary and middle school model, and then there's a high school model. So the elementary and middle school model incorporates reading end of grade scores, math end of grade scores, math 1 end of course scores for any middle school students that have taken math 1 in middle school, science end of grade scores in 5th grade and 8th grade, English learner progress, and then of course 20% of growth. For our high schools, the model is a little different. So it has English 2 end of course scores, Math 1 and Math 3 end of course scores, biology end of course scores, ACT, work keys assessments, English learner progress, math course rigor, which is the number of 12th graders that have achieved a certain level of math instruction, which is Math 3. Again, 20% of growth, and then it also includes graduation rates. So the high school model is a little bit more complicated because it has a larger number. The English language learner progress also in high school is only for students who are identified in the 10th grade. So they're even just taking a little slice of all the learners from that school.
So just a couple of overarching highlights. Growth, you can see here, we had 26% of our schools who exceeded growth. We had 32% meet growth, and we had 42% of schools who did not meet the growth indicator. You'll notice in just a little bit, though, we're going to show you some examples of how some of our schools moved up in performance grade growth, but they did not meet growth. Some of them had as many as 6 points of increase in their overall school performance grade. So I don't want anyone, when you see the list of schools that did not meet growth, please make no mistake, there was still progress that happened in those schools. But the way that the growth is calculated, if it's not a certain level that is a positive level of growth, it can overarching end up being a negative growth not met. That's really confusing. I understand that, and that's something that we have to work with each school to say, you still made progress as a school, but overarching, you didn't get that final growth score. Go to the next one. One of the things that we're really excited about, 69% of our schools met or exceeded in math. But the one that I think we're most excited to see is that 92% of our schools met or exceeded for grades 3 through 8 reading. And you're going to also see some examples of the success we're seeing at high school with literacy. And I think that shows our commitment to our literacy training that you all have helped support, our literacy curriculum in both elementary and middle schools that we've implemented over the last couple of years. And so that's a really exciting number. Next slide. This particular slide shows you each of our schools kind of on a continuum with their growth index. Anything that is over a positive 2 is considered exceeded. And you can actually see a couple of the schools that are 0.17 or slightly over 1, that is still a considered meets. But to be in the exceeded category, you have to be about positive 2 or higher. So you can see we had some schools who had very high growth index: Northwood, Virginia Cross, our early college, North Chatham, George Moses Horton, Pittsboro, Bondley, J.S. Waters, and Perry Harrison all had those positive growth scores. Next slide. We also wanted to highlight, we had quite a few schools who also had every single one of their student groups. As you know, we have about 10 different categories of groups that we are held accountable for, and we get a growth score for each of those groups. And at elementary, North Chatham, Perry Harrison, Pittsboro, and Virginia Cross met or exceeded with every single one of those student groups. At our K-8 and middle schools, Horton, George Moses Horton, and J.S. Waters also met with every single one of their groups. And the groups may vary depending upon each school based off of the number of students in each of those groups. At high school, we had Chatham Central, Northwood, and the early college. And this is one of those examples where, again, Chatham Central is a school that went up in performance grade. They also had every single one of their student groups meet or exceed growth, but you'll notice when we look at our list of schools that did not meet growth, they were one of those. So again, there are very positive nuggets in that information. We also are really excited that we are, if you look at 115 LEAs in the state for 3rd through 8th grade reading, we are 15th in the state. And I recall over the last 10 years, we've been as low as in the 60s. So we have gradually been working up in that level, and we're in the top 15 at this point. So we're excited about the work with our literacy plans. English 2, for our high school students, we are 13th in the state. So again, a lot of progress being made with that.
So now we're going to dive into performance grades. So 84% of Chatham County schools received a school performance grade of C or better. This is exciting because it exceeds the state by nearly 20%. So the state only had 67% of the schools across North Carolina received a school performance grade or C or better. This graph represents a comparison of school grades from last year to this year. So for example, last year we had 6 schools that received the letter B and 6 schools this year. We decreased the number of D schools, increased the number of C schools, but we do have that one F school, Chatham Middle, from this year. And of course, we have Chatham Early College, our 1A school. So I think something to note that only 8% of all schools in North Carolina receive this recognition of a letter 8, and we have, or letter of A, and we have one of them. So that's something to really celebrate and be proud of. So this graph represents the school performance grade integer that each school received. So the horizontal lines represent the threshold of what you would need to be to receive an A, B, or C. And we can clearly see that some of our schools are moving closer towards a higher letter. So Virginia Cross, for example, is 1 point away from becoming a C school. George Moses Wharton is only 1 point away from being a B school. And you see that 1 point and you're like, where is that 1 point, right? And then Bennett, Pollard are only 2 points away from getting to a B.
And sometimes, depending on how the numbers fall, you say it's 1 point, but you really can drill down a little bit more and say 1 student. So,
yeah, or 6/10, right? You're like, where's that point?
Every score counts.
Every score counts. The next graph is where our high schools fall with performance grades and integers. And then again, we have some schools that are extremely close to that next threshold. So a couple points, and we could really be having more A schools. So as Dr. Moran mentioned before, this graph represents the number of points that our schools grew as far as the school performance grade indicator. So you can see like Seaforth grew 6 points. That is very impressive. They're one of the schools that didn't meet growth, but yet they grew 6 points in their school performance grade. So it just becomes really ironic and interesting for the mathematicians at a company in Cary that put together all those formulas, because you're like, how did that happen? It's clear that we have many schools that increase their overall score, even if they didn't meet the threshold for the next letter grade. Yes.
So one thing to keep in mind here as well is that the goal that we set for our schools, Dr. Jackson has goals that he expects each of our schools to meet. And that threshold in this particular area is we expect all of our schools to get 2 to 3 performance grade points. So you can see many of our schools surpass that. And to get those 6 points, as Ms. Reap-Clossy mentioned, is pretty significant. It's double what we typically would want to see.
Question, y'all may not have the numbers right now. What's the average state growth?
Back to you.
Okay,
That's a great question.
Because then you can put things, if the average state growth is 2.1, then you look at our numbers and go, wow, so.
Yeah, that's a great question.
That would be.
I'll look into that for sure. Okay, so now we're going to get into some of the performance composites. So this is, we looked at the region and we looked at all of the scores combined. So it's all of the high school scores, all of the 3-8 reading and math scores, all of our EL progress, everything kind of put into one. And we ranked 3rd in the region. So again, quite impressive. And we are well above the state average. So the state average was 54.2, and we're at 57.8. And it's only Wake County and Chapel Hill that are above us this year. Did you want to mention about socioeconomic levels in those counties?
Sure. So, one of the things that I think we always try to mention too is that when you look at the comparisons across the region and the state, obviously every school and every district are different and come with a variety of different needs for students. And when you look at the comparisons up here, you have Chapel Hill Schools, which has only about 8 to 10% of their students that are students that have at-risk factors or a free and reduced lunch status.
compared with our district, which the district average is around 40%, and we have schools as high as 97%. So when you're really thinking about the students and where we're meeting them and how far we're moving them, you're kind of comparing apples to oranges here as far as that goes. We're probably most comparable when you look at surrounding districts. Orange County Schools is a little bit more aligned with kind of the diversity as well as the economic status of our district. And you can see where they fall on this list in comparison to Chatham.
Everybody's quiet at this point. I think that's a big woo-hoo.
So this slide represents all the areas in which Chatham County Schools performed above the state average. So you can see there's quite a bit up there. I was running out of space on the graph, so I had to combine some of the indicators together on one bar there. The only areas were third grade reading, eighth grade science, math 3, and ML progress, but every other indicator we were above the state average. That's another thing that's important to notice and celebrate. It just goes into a little bit more detail, comparing where Chatham County Schools was to the state. So again, combining all the 3-8 scores together, what our average was compared to the state's, high school achievement assessments put all together, ACTs and work keys, you can see, and some of those areas were significantly above. The state of North Carolina, it's interesting. I keep waiting for this to end. When are we going to stop talking about the pandemic? I know that Dr. Jackson has kind of said this too. Are we ever going to get past this? But the state keeps bringing up this comparison, so I feel like it's important for us to share that our pre-pandemic overall performance composite was 62.4. The year that we came back, it dropped down to 47.9, and now we're just 4 points under where we were pre-pandemic. So you'll see, it's interesting, some of these numbers here. So this graph represents our high school indicators. So these are our high school assessments, and you can see we've either exceeded where we were pre-pandemic or we're extremely close. So when I'm looking at these graphs, I'm putting it into context of what year did these students miss in their educational outcomes. So when I look at this, these high schoolers, some of them missed their maybe first year in high school or their second year in high school. So these students didn't miss necessarily their foundational years where they were learning the foundations of the learning blocks and the fluency. So the impact, it seems like our students that didn't miss those years have made an earlier comeback. When we look at high school scores, which we're going to get into, or middle schoolers, the middle school students, I was working in a PLC the other day, the 7th graders missed 3rd grade, which is where you get your foundation and become fluent. And they were talking about the students struggling with the multiplication facts. I was like, that's 3rd grade, and they missed their multiplication facts. And now they're in 7th grade, sitting and learning advanced math and still struggling with those facts that they missed in 3rd grade. So I feel like our middle school students right now are the ones that we need to kind of dig into to see what else do we think they missed. So we're going to dig a little into the 3rd through 8th grade indicators. So this is the 3rd grade read to achieve data. I almost put pre-pandemic numbers up here, and I thought of Dr. Jackson. And I was like, well, the thing is that these 3rd graders weren't in school during the pandemic, so we don't really need to go back to that. So again, really our focus on pre-pandemic should be the students that are in middle school. So what's really exciting about these numbers, and is such a great baseline, is that, well, we had 655 3rd graders last year that were enrolled in Chatham County Schools. 48.2 passed the EOG or passed the beginning of year. So first time around, they passed the assessment. But when we look at all of those multiple pathways that we've talked about in the past, reading passages throughout the year, M-class assessments, a read to achieve assessment, summer camp opportunities, it increases to 69.4. So those are the students that showed some sort of proficiency on an assessment that says that they met the 3rd grade reading thresholds according to the state of North Carolina. The number on the bottom is the total number of students obtaining a pathway as outlined in the legislation, and that number is 83.4. That number includes our special education students, our second language learners that maybe are new to the country, so they're not counted in those top numbers. So it increases significantly. But that bottom number of 83.4, we don't have as much control over that number because one year we might have a lot of third graders that are new to the country, or it might so happen that we have a lot of special education students that year. Whereas that 69.4 is really the number that we want to use to kind of target movement. And last year, I think we were at like 69.1 for that number. So we're making incremental, but we're hoping that next year with all the changes we've made in curriculum, that's going to increase.
You mentioned the beginning of grade. I know the third graders are getting ready, maybe tomorrow, some of them anyway, to take that. Is it included in the state score? It's not, is it?
No.
That's what I thought. So really for a teacher, they can see the difference there from the beginning to the end. Okay, okay.
Yep.
So, but it's not included in that. All right.
No.
Thank you.
It's for us to kind of.
I understand.
So this is a 5-year comparison, and we look at these, of course, that first bar and the light blue is 2018, 2019, pre-pandemic, of course, and then you can kind of see the change. But it's exciting to look at. I put this together and I was like, I really like the way this looks because you can see that we're getting extremely close to where we were and then exceeding in some areas like those high school areas too. So I just thought it was something important to share and kind of take note of. The next couple charts, these are just the charts we'll post to the website. This is something that's required by the state of North Carolina. We're not going to talk about these too much. They're just here for you to peruse. It's each school by grade for reading and math and science. So Jimmy, you can go through these slides and you can look, and it has a county average and state average for each of the assessments. High school indicators. I'll give a couple of overviews there. Again, we have another one of those charts if you want to see all of these broken down by school. You'll go to the next one. We're particularly excited this year to share that our 5-year and 4-year graduation rates are sitting at 90%, and that was the goal that Dr. Jackson set for our schools. And you can see that the state 4-year is 86% and the 5-year is 88%. Now, I don't have data for Chatham County schools as far back as, when it first opened or whenever graduation rates started to become a thing, but we have at least 15 years worth that we were able to track back, and we have not seen a graduation rate of this level in all of the years of data that we can find. So we're particularly excited about the progress that our high schools are making. Also, in going along with our graduation rates, we have our high school students who earn $36 million in scholarships. And of those $36 million, you can see what percentage of those were from AVID students. 51.5% of that $36 million are from our AVID students. Also to note, the class of 2024 earned 360 semesters of coursework. So imagine how many degrees that is, how many dollars that saved families. And so our students are obtaining quite a bit of college credit while they're in high school. We also had 97% of our students this past year who were accepted to 2- or 4-year colleges or universities. And of those, 89.6% of those students said that they were planning to go on to those universities. Of course, some of those students who may have been accepted into universities may have gone into the military instead, or they may have gone straight into the workforce. And again, you can see the other high school indicators here. So as always, better is always possible, and so we wanted to point out to you and be really transparent about where we believe that our data is telling us we have areas to focus on, and then what we're going to do about it, and what we're already doing about it. So an area of focus for us is our multilingual learner progress, our ESL students, and while they are making progress, they're not making it at the rate that we would like to see. Our students with disabilities, while many of our schools did make progress with this group, of course our EC student group tends to be our group that has some of the lowest proficiency, which would be somewhat expected, but it's still an area that we believe that all students are capable of learning, and we want to continue to focus on that group. 8th grade science fell slightly below the state average.
And so we want to make sure that we are focusing there with some professional development for our teachers. Math 3 at the high school continues to be an area we want to focus on. And third grade reading was only 0.2 percentage areas away from the state level, but again, that's still always going to be an area that we focus on. I think it's always on our list because we know that's such a pivotal data point. And then, as you'll see in just a moment, one of our major areas of focus will be supporting our support plan schools. And so some of the action steps that we are already taking currently, we will be working with an outside provider to do a program review of our ML program. And you know that we've done a variety of these over the years with our EC program, our dual language program, our AIG program. And it really is helpful to sometimes have outside eyes come in and say, here's what's working and here's what we think you might want to consider. They usually will help us have some recommendations for improvements, and they'll also do comparisons to where we compare with staffing or other types of programmatic tools or resources as compared with other places. So we're excited about that. Our ML staff and EC staff are in the process of being trained on co-teaching. That work is already underway and started in August. Some of them actually started this past year as well. And then, as you know, we adopted the K-5 curriculum, the EL curriculum. It's been really exciting to be out in the schools and see how excited our teachers are about this program and to see the level of conversation, the level of rigor, and the level of writing that is happening in all classrooms, even in the first week of school. And to see teachers this excited about a program, I don't know in all of the adoptions of curriculum that we've done over the years, have we ever had really this much buy-in. So that has been really exciting to see. We will continue to sustain the letters professional development for any new staff or staff that come to us who have not received that. We will also have professional development on the science kits. What we've noticed is that over the years, we provided the science kits to staff, but we're seeing some of those not being used as consistently or with fidelity as we would like. And some of that could be that we've not had enough training for teachers to know how to use it. Because when the kit arrives on your door, it has a lot of stuff in it, but they might need help knowing how to make that match the curriculum. So that work is in progress. We've also worked to get Delta Math intervention for our high schools. And then you'll see here in just a moment our support plans. We've already started, and we'll be meeting with principals this week to share more about those plans. So a little bit to note about the support plans. They are not state required. It's a process we started back in 2015-16, and we have a pretty good recipe for success. With the exception of just a couple of schools, almost every school that goes into the support plan process usually comes out of that process within 1 year. So if they go in not meeting growth, usually within a year, we're able to have them meet or exceed growth. It's a tiered structure for us, and we do this for any school that has not met growth, any school that went backwards in a letter grade, or any school that is a D or F school. It's an ongoing accountability structure and a way that we provide additional support layers to schools and also additional problem solving around data. And we use a number of funding sources for this. We use state and local at-risk student funds, and instructional supply funds, professional development funds, and contracted services. So we don't receive any additional funding from the state for any of our schools that are identified as low performing. It's just something that we commit to doing with the funds that we have available. Next slide. So this particular chart shows you each of our schools that we will have on a Chatham County Schools support plan this upcoming year. You can see there the schools that are not meeting growth, any school that is a D or F, any school that dropped a letter grade, or any school that is deemed by the state as a school that is low performing, or as we say, a school in need of support. And that just shows you an overview of which schools have that designation and then what type of support plan they will have. And Mr. Swankle, if you can click on the support plan process real quick. And if you can blow that up a little bit. So I'm just going to speed through this, but you've probably seen this document in the past. We've added a few new things this year, but it has all of the legal language around the supports that are required by the state for communication about plans and that type of thing. If you'll keep going. Keep scrolling up, keep scrolling up. We also have that same chart with each of the schools that we're focused on. Keep going. We also then have a table, keep going up.
that lists who is the point person of contact for each of these schools. And then the next chart also shows how many instructional visits they will have, how many data huddles they will have, and all of the different components that each school has. Keep going. This chart shows for each of the schools in blue that have a support plan, the individuals from the academic services team that will be assigned to go to those schools on a regular basis for instructional visits and data huddles. So you can see, particularly you'll notice that some of our schools that have the highest level of need will have a much larger list of support staff. And then the bottom part of this document will show you all of the various requirements of support plans. And so we do the instructional visits. We have 4 meetings with the principal throughout the year at minimum to look at data. We also give feedback on principal and assistant principal evaluations of teachers to make sure that teachers are getting high quality feedback on their performance. We look at any teacher that does not meet expected growth for their class and provide professional development to those teachers, as well as additional supports and a number of other supports. We meet with those schools and we look at what their needs are. So over the years, we've provided additional funds for tutoring. We provided books for a book study in a particular curriculum area that a school wanted to focus on. We've provided additional supports from outside folks to give coaching support to our principals or to certain staff. So there are just a number of ways that we will kind of target or create supports for each individual school that are very targeted to that school. And if you'll click out of that back to our slide deck. And go to the next slide. So there are a couple of things that are required by the state for low-performing schools, which is part of the reason we're sharing this evening. We wanted to get ahead of the plan with this. So Chatham Middle and Siler City Elementary are our only 2 schools at this point that are designated as low-performing. The plan that we've included here is a sample that we'll walk through in just a second. Community members have from this board meeting until the next board meeting to give feedback, and staff can do that as well. And any feedback that anyone would like to give can be sent to my attention. We will then bring these plans back for your approval at the October meeting so that we'll be ahead of that state deadline, which is in December. The schools also will be required to send a letter home to families outlining their support and things that they'll be doing to increase student achievement in their school. So really the only thing that the state requires of us for these schools is that we send a letter home and that we have a plan of some sort. They really don't get into designating what has to be on that plan. And we have, this is something that we're really proud of. We've shared at the state level with other districts as well. We've had other districts come in and meet with our team so that we could share our process that we use here in Chatham. And if you'll click on that link there at the top, we know our school in greatest need in our district right now is Chatham Middle School, and we're not going to hide from that. We want to be very transparent about that. We've never had a school that had a school grade of an F, and we take that very seriously. So we have already worked with Principal Leak over the summer, and we've put quite a few changes in place at Chatham Middle already. As you know, we've added an assistant principal there to assist with general leadership and oversight and instructional monitoring. We had the staggered start this year as well, which helped the school really get off to new expectations and very clear guidelines for structures in the school. We also have a plan of support here that outlines all of the different academic staff. We will be meeting with the school weekly in a variety of ways. We have staff going to all of their PLC meetings. We have staff going to each of their faculty meetings, school improvement meetings, helping plan for those meetings as well so that we're working alongside of the principal. Keep going up just a little bit. That shows the individuals who are assigned. We also help the school put some structures in place. If you'll keep going up. Like weekly staff communications, ways that they're tracking data, working with the administrative team. I'm meeting with them on a regular basis. I think I've met with them about 3 or 4 times already this school year, just looking at how they're organizing the school year. They have plans for student leadership, community engagement, sessions for parents. You'll just keep scrolling. It's about a 10-page plan, so you can see we have a lot of different things that we're working on with them. I won't go into all of the details here, but you can see some of the different things that are listed here, even down to how are we managing student movement in the building. If we see that student discipline issues are happening during transitions, then how can we control those transitions? So we worked with the school team to develop some new structures around things just like that. We're excited. We went to meet with the Chatham Middle School staff during the workdays to share this plan with them, and the staff are excited. There are some amazing, great staff members there. I believe the school is almost 100% staffed, if not 100% at this point. And so it's been exciting to be able to start the year with quality teachers in place and people who are very, very excited about the work they're doing. Particularly some of the international staff we have are unbelievable and are already serving as leaders within the school. In fact, one of the teachers took over the meeting and started teaching us cheers and different things with data. So that was pretty cool to see them take leadership. So again, that's not everything with our Chatham Middle Plan, but it's up there for the public to see, for you to see. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to answer it. A lot of these things are already in place and will be continued and ongoing. This will also be a living, breathing document. So as we meet with Chatham Middle, we'll continue to add things here. We'll mark things off in green as we complete them so that you'll be able to see our progress as well. And if you'll go back to the slides. I think I just have one more slide and I'm done. So I love this quote that Dr. Jackson gave us a couple of years ago, and it really just speaks to what we know about our students. Our students are more than test numbers, but we also know that we have to have accountability just like any profession does. And the work that our teachers are doing with our students in the classroom, I would put them up against any in the state. And so we always want to make sure that while we share these numbers and while we share these plans of support, that we also recognize and honor the work that our teachers and our leaders are doing in classrooms, because amazing things are happening in our schools. And better is always possible, and we're going to do everything we can to continue to get better each and every day. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. We know that was a lot, but we also wanted to make sure we shared enough depth of the data. Yes.
I have a question. Thank you for this presentation, both of you. So while we have people in the audience and listening in, you mentioned the opportunities for feedback coming up, for community feedback, and I was just wondering if you can elaborate a little bit on what that will look like and how people can access that so that anybody listening in, and so that we can also help spread the word.
Yes, so in the board item, it has my contact information. There's not a formal form or process. Folks can send that in any language. They can send it in an email. They can call, however they would like to give that feedback. The school will also send that out to their stakeholders. So that has been shared with their school improvement team, and then they will have to share that out with their stakeholders. So anybody who is a family member, parent, guardian in the school will receive the plan, and they'll have directions for how to give that feedback directly back to the school.
And so they'll email you back directly? Okay.
Yes.
Do you want to title that email while people are listening? No.
It doesn't have to be any particular format. It could just be an email to me. Now, the school will receive the feedback directly through the principal, and he'll send that information to us.
So parents that are coming into the school will have an opportunity to give that feedback directly to the principal?
Correct.
And how would they convey that to the principal?
So the principal will send out in the weekly phone message a link to the plan, and then we'll make sure that there is an opportunity and directions on how to give feedback. In the past, we've just done that where they email the principal.
I see.
Yeah.
And so, okay. And then is the parent advisory team still active at Chatham Middle? And so,
Yes. In fact, we have our first district parent advisory, I believe, September 26th. I hope that's the correct date, but I'm pretty sure that's when it's coming up. And we typically have shared the accountability results and the support plan structures during that meeting. So that will be our plan again. And so that would still be in time to receive feedback from that group as well.
And parents can attend school improvement team meetings at any time and come in and give feedback to the school improvement team as well.
Right. And so for any parent listening, they can find that information, I assume, on our website or the school's website. And yeah.
Yep. And the plan is linked here for Chatham Middle, as well as all of the support plans.
There are parents on.
Oh, yeah.
They do have a parent organization at Chatham.
I have a question about the chart where it talks about schools not meeting growth, and there's a list of schools, and it seemed like a lot of those schools are actually have higher letter grades for the county. And can you explain, I guess, why that is? It seems like, is there a ceiling that the schools are hitting on that growth, like they can't meet the growth because they're actually doing pretty well, or how would you explain that?
So, the way that I always think of stacks. So think of stacks of schools. So every year, the state of North Carolina will see where students ended in third grade and take those same students and stack them, right? So like we rank them, like an average was 90% proficient, so you're going to be up here, or if your average was 40% proficient, you're going to be here. And they put you in a progression. Then the next year, the same students take the assessment. They they take all the assessments together and then they restack those same students. So if this student in the third grade, say the school, the third graders were ranked 10th in the state, the next year, depending on what their assessment scores and how they ranked, if they stayed at the 10th percentile or ranked 10th in the state, then that's meeting growth.
Okay.
If they became 8th in the state, then they exceeded growth. And if they were lower, it would be less. But then there's a standard deviation in there. That's the simple way to kind of explain it.
So
If that's simple. If that's simple. It is hard. It is very hard to explain.
But you're
Very
saying
hard.
the schools that aren't meeting growth from year to year might be slipping just a little bit, but basically staying pretty close to what they were the previous year?
Well, it's in comparison to how other schools progressed how the students in the other schools progressed. So the growth measure is a comparative measure between schools in North Carolina.
Okay.
It's not just how this one student did. I'm going to take an average of all the fourth graders at one school, and I'm going to take their performance average. And then I'm going to take every other school in North Carolina that has fourth grade, and I'm going to see I'm basically going to put them in order, right? So you got 90, you got 89, you got 88, you got 87, and I stack them like that. Then the next year, I'm going to see how those same kids did, like that grade level did, compare all the fifth graders, and then stack them next to each other and see did that school kind of stay where they were, or did they get better or worse?
Okay.
I
And that's
think-
for the growth side.
And that's just the growth. And it's much more complicated than that because it's the calculus equations, and then they have students that have been in the country for more than 2 years, and then they have this person, and it's
I guess what I'm trying to point out, it's not really fair to say that a change in a school from one year to the next year is a reflection on how that school is doing. Is that fair to say it's not fair? That makes sense? Like,
It's probably the thing that I would say our largest frustration with the way that the accountability model is it's based off of 80% proficiency. So in some schools, particularly schools that tend to have students who come to us with maybe already quite a few of their needs met or already have a lot of academic language opportunities that other students may not have, that proficiency is probably going to be there regardless, right? But we have schools like Virginia Cross who are moving students, and they're this outlier on scatter plots for the state. They are moving students further than lots of other schools in the state, but they still have a grade of a D because they don't have that proficiency. And 80% of that school grade comes from proficiency alone, not the growth. I do think the question that you're asking, though, it does become increasingly more challenging when students are at a level 5 and they're already in that top tier score to continue to move them. And so the work that we have to do, particularly with some of our higher performing schools that are our B schools and our A schools to continue to meet growth, is we have to continue to up the level of rigor for all students in those schools. Even if you are a student who is a level 4 or 5, you still need to be moving. And that's not always an easy thing to do. I mean, think about yourself with weight loss or in sports. Once you reach that point, it's really hard to continue to get beyond that point, right? So it's similar with our schools. I think that's kind of what you're
That's
asking.
kinda what I was trying to get
Our
at.
early college exceeded growth this year, which is, to Dr. Moran's point,
Not easy to do.
It's not easy to do, and it's notable. So it's doable, but it is challenging.
And then the other thing I noticed is that Chatham Middle is a middle school, and you were talking about how maybe we are seeing something from the pandemic because the kids who are in middle school now and last year were really at those critical years for their academic development, like third grade. And so how
When we
much do you
first-
think that's playing a role?
I think it's a lot. When we first came back from the pandemic, so much of our focus was on our early readers. Because at that time when we first came back, they had missed first grade and they were kind of entering the end of second and third grade and just starting to get these test scores back. So I think when we first came back, our focus was, oh my gosh, these students missed the beginning building blocks of reading. And now, like you said, as I'm kind of sitting and working with teachers and delving into the middle school data, that's when I started reflecting, wow, they missed K2 is building blocks. 3, 4 is fluency, is application, is become fluent at those things. So these students miss that opportunity, and that could be what's having an impact on this for sure. So we're trying to figure out now, we just had a meeting earlier, how are we going to fill those gaps?
I think that there's another problem. What you're saying makes sense if they did miss in the 3rd and 4th grade. But this is middle school. These are children that are transiting from puberty to adolescence. So they have other things in their minds. And I wish that we could develop a curriculum that gives them that social and emotional support while they're going through this. You know, give them some academic figure that's relevant to them, you know, because they're always the most unique group in the whole school population.
Love our middle school teachers.
In keeping with, oh, sorry. I was just to add on to what Dell just asked. Like I know that we have counselors and for various schools. Does a support plan, and partly it's my not having good glasses, but does part of our support plan, and I'm trying to remember from looking at it, include sending more counselors to Chatham Middle?
So the support plan does not necessarily give additional staffing all the time. We do allow staff to do position transfers. So if they want to add additional counselors, they have Title I funds, they can do that. And so Chatham Middle has done a couple of different things in kind of the student services area. Ms. Fowler, I can't remember exactly what all they've added, but they've added a couple of different things. They have the AVID support. They have an additional person who helps with student behaviors as well. So they use those additional federal funds that they receive. And of course, they have a full-time social worker as well. So we do try to add additional supports where we can. Other things that we will sometimes do for schools that are support plan schools, if they are a school that is right on the cusp of losing a teacher because of student numbers, we will sometimes say we're going to allow that school to hang on to that teacher because they're in that support plan status. So there are things that we're able to help provide additional supports, but it's not typically we're giving a lot of extra positions. We have really great allotments for our schools compared with neighboring counties, but we have to also look at how we're using those positions and how we're maximizing them and monitoring instruction. So we try not to always just think about adding people, but looking at how we're using the people we already have. Does that make sense?
You mentioned that on allotments. I'm going to beat you to it real quick. From what I've understood, we have the fewest combinations going on this year that we've had in a while. Am I correct on that? From what I've asked and what teachers have told me, yes.
I worked with teams at schools to try our hardest to eliminate the need.
Well, you must have done a pretty good job because I've heard teachers really expounding on that quite a bit and appreciating that.
Last 2 years, last year had maybe 3 or 4, and this year they're down. We got them down to 1. I don't know if Bennett has
0.
J.S. Waters has 1.
Yeah, they do. They did tell me 1. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Doesn't have any. So.
And K-8s are difficult anyway. I understand that.
Yes, we did a lot of. Yeah. It takes hours, but we got.
Thank y'all for that.
You are so welcome.
And again, that comes from not giving any additional allotments to those schools, but that comes from creative scheduling and also looking at the class size expectations from the state.
Mr. Ham, do you have something?
More of a clarification. This kind of comes out of what Julie was asking. Used to, and I know things change every time we turn around. When everything goes, the test scores go in May and all this, and the state's grinding out the numbers and all that. And I'll use the word arbitrary, but maybe that's not the right word. That's how I perceive it. But if if the state, say in third grade, the reading is just off the chart.
Renorm. That's the word, renorm, right? That's what they do. Go
Well,
ahead.
they renorm, and then maybe the way I look at it, they just arbitrarily say this is the new cutoffs. Um, is that still happening? Because if that's still happening, the bottom line is, long story short, no matter how well we ever do, the state's going to make sure. Because you mentioned the early college, you're already sitting at an A, and they had growth. How did they? You just shake your head and say, okay, if you're already making a 98. I'm just throwing a number out, but you're already making a 98. How did you make a 99? I mean,
Yeah. So next year, so they renorm usually when a new assessment comes out, and so that's on a particular rotation. So actually, this year, 24-25, where the students will be experiencing a new science, 5th grade science, 8th grade science, and biology assessment. So next year when we're presenting, we might just get those science scores back. We will not have them at the end of the school year because so they do go through that process. It's every 7 years, I think, or something like that for each subject. So science is this year.
I would only say that the long and short of all of this is,
the game starts in a few minutes.
Yeah, the game starts. Long and short is truly, this is the result of one day. Our students going into, and there are lots of systems in place that will help us try to understand this. This is one pulse point, and I really want us to understand, regardless of what you call a school, there are kids in every one of these schools who have absolutely blown the top. We have kids who score 5s, and we have in even the highest performing schools, we have kids who scored 1s. Our job is to make sure that every single child is prepared to meet the rigors every single day in every single classroom. And I would caution us from getting so bogged down on this one day. It is an indicator for us, and it should help us plan what we do. But we should always be looking throughout the year at those formative places where we stop and look at how kids are doing. We also need to make sure that we are not, that growth formula, they will tell you I spent 2.5 hours on the phone with DPI. And I'll say this publicly, they could not explain it to me. I'm being very candid with you. It was very difficult for them to make it make sense. So I'm sitting here chuckling because we can't really there's no real simple answer for it. It's a standard deviation and a -2 to a +2. And if you know 0 is the midpoint. And if more kids are closer to the -2 than they are to the +2, even though they're within the range, your school could be. So that's how we have schools, because I couldn't understand, how could you have a school where every subgroup meets or exceeds growth and the school does not as a whole meet growth? They could not explain that to me. And so I would just say we're working on that. It is a proprietary formula that we're probably not going to know. So we take this work and we begin to push forward. And so that this year we're going to try to help schools move as many kids towards that +2 as they can get. That's the easiest way I can say it. So hopefully that helps.
Well, I used to say it was like the recipe for Coke. Yeah. It was the secret formula, and only a handful of people in Raleigh know what that secret formula is, and they aren't going to tell anybody. Just like Coke's not going to tell anybody what their secret formula is.
So I have one more question, just circling back to, forgive me for circling back to parent engagement, because we have such a high percentage of Spanish-speaking parents and, of course, kids. I know that they can email you in Spanish. Are the other materials available in Spanish. I just want to make sure, because I imagine when parents hear about this score, they're going to have questions, they're going to want to talk, and I just want to make sure it's accessible. I know that y'all have accessibility in your minds too. I just wondered if there's anything concrete we can confirm about that.
Yes, so when
Yeah.
the letter goes out to families, it will be in Spanish. The plan will be translated so that they can see the plan in Spanish as well, and they can send their feedback in English or Spanish.
Okay.
And then the school typically usually has a curriculum night as well where they talk about these things. So they'll also have, obviously, the two-way communication devices as well so that families can hear the information in both languages.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And talking about the secret formula, do y'all have the ability, or do they ever, with all the politics involved in this thing, crank in the scores and say, okay, we're going to use, instead of 80-20, 70-30, and see how the state works out? Because that, it's political, and what gets me,
Go ahead and tell them, Dr. Jackson.
Those numbers.
what gets me with all the stuff, politics that are going on now, and competition for parents and who go to this school or that school, it just blows my mind that the people in Raleigh that make these decisions wouldn't want to make public schools look better.
They don't care.
And let's change the formula to 70-30 or 60-40 or 50-50. Hello.
Hadn't the state board asked for that? In the process of being asked for right now?
It's been, yeah,
But
it's been.
But the legislature would have to approve that, Dr. Jackson, am I correct? Okay.
I think they have to apply to the federal government too for approval as well.
Pardon?
Because they would have to share that plan with the federal government, and the federal government has to approve it as well.
Okay.
So there's multiple layers to it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank y'all very much. We appreciate the information.
Only taught first grade. It's simple.
Item B, NCSBA Board Policy Manual Update 7000 series. Of course, that's first reading. Dr. Moran.
So as you know, we're in the process of revising all of our policies. This particular month, we have 19 policies for review from the School Boards Association, and it's the 7000B series, so we've brought you the 7000A already. The vast majority of these policies fall within our Human Resources division, and if you look at the chart, if you could pull open the chart, I'll just point out a couple of quick things. The vast majority of these that are in green are things that had just small revisions to legal language or small changes in language to match other policies. There are a couple that are marked in orange that we will bring back to you next month. These typically were places where we have an existing Chatham County Schools policy that they are asking that we repeal and replace with a School Boards Association policy. And so we wanted to give a little more time. These came to us just actually a few days ago. So we wanted to make sure we had time to look at that before we started repealing policies. So we'll bring those to you next month, but they are highlighted in orange so you can see specifically which ones those are. I think there are 3. The rest of them are pretty much just reference updates or legal updates that are required by state policy. But we're here to answer any questions about any of these that you may have. Of course, we'll bring them back for the final approval next month.
Are there any that stand out as being particularly different to you?
The absences due to inclement weather is an area where there was some language that was unique to Chatham that we had to make some decisions about. And if is Dr. Batten still here? I don't know if there are any you want to mention specifically. The 3 that were in question that we have some decisions to make about were the return to work policy, superintendent contract, and workday and overtime. And again, those were because we had Chathamized policies. So the official School Boards Association policy was not what was currently in our books. And so again, since we only had these for a couple of days to review, we wanted to hold those until the next meeting before we decide if we want to just throw out the policies we have. But really the rest of them, you can see in the table, it'll show you the notes for consideration. Most of these will say it's language to be consistent with other policies, changes in the reference to match legal updates. So really there's not a lot of substantial change in any of these. It's all, for the most most part, clarifying matching legal references, updating school district to school system,
Things like
small
that.
things
I
like
know
that.
sometimes with legal language, it hinges on a word.
Yes.
You know, and so I didn't detect significant difference, but I just wanted to make sure when I read it that I wasn't missing one of those, you know, tricky legal words that changes everything. You know,
No.
so yeah.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Moran. We'll move to action items. And Dr. Moran, you're still there. Resolution Arts and Education Week, please.
So this week, starting September 8th, is Arts and Education Week. And as you know, Chatham County has a long history of supporting the arts across our district. We are competitive local, regional, and state level. We've been named one of the best communities for music, one of only 2 in the state. I believe this might be year 7 or 8. I keep forgetting which, but for quite a while we've been receiving that designation. We also have support from our Chatham Arts Council, who provides our schools with artists in residencies each year to provide our students with high quality instruction in arts. 2023 was the first year we also had Artist Year AmeriCorps members in 2 of our schools who are teaching visiting artists, but they're basically like full-time employees. This year we will have 2 more of those visiting artists with us. And we're excited that we've added some new arts positions at a time that many districts are cutting arts positions. We will have our arts program facilitator with us. His name is Mr. Brian DeCristofaro. He is a CCS graduate. He also taught at multiple Chatham County schools and came from a family of Chatham County schools educators. They have moved back into the Chatham area from Arizona, and he will be working to support our arts programming. We'll be working on a more comprehensive arts program update for you after he kind of gets transitioned and gets his feet wet here. But he's busy out supporting our teachers. We also were able this year, for the first time in the history that I'm aware of in Chatham, we're able to eliminate the paired positions that we had at our K-8 schools. And these positions that were shared amongst schools wreaked havoc on the scheduling for schools. Instead of scheduling for what was best for students or instruction, we had to schedule based off of when we had people available in schools. And so this will also bring consistency to arts programming so that every school has the same arts programs, every school has the same amount of time, and the same every week experience for students. In some of our schools, we had to sometimes A week, B week on certain arts programming, and so that will be eliminated this year.
One Chatham, thank you.
Chatham, that's right.
That's monumental.
And we have amazing, talented students in our district who are recognized up to the international level. And we have dedicated staff who, you heard this earlier from the student who spoke, who build relationships with our students and really hone their craft to help our students be the best that they can be. So it's a great week for us to celebrate our arts teachers and our arts students. And so in honor of Education Week for the arts, we have the resolution for your approval.
I move that the Chatham County Board of Education approve the resolution for Arts in Education Week, September 8th through 14th, 2024 is presented.
Sorry.
We've got a motion and an early second, so we'll take it anyway. Any discussion other than, I thought, got to visit a time or 2 when artists were working, and I thought it was fantastic. Actually, I was in a art class. They didn't ask me to draw, thank goodness, last Thursday with 3rd graders, and they were doing Funny Hair Day or whatever with themselves, pictures, and it was wonderful. The kids were doing a really good job, so thank you for that. And of course, I was in a music class. They didn't ask me to sing either, thank goodness for that. But I've been really impressed, so thank you for all of that. Anybody else? Good. All in favor of the motion with an aye, please? Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Thank you. Dr. Moran again, Speech Inspirations PLLC contract.
So the next 2 items that are kind of back-to-back here, as you know, we've used a number of strategies over the last couple of years to ensure that our EC positions are filled in our schools. And tonight we have 2 EC contracts for your consideration. These are the types of services that will save our district from costly compensatory services or litigation for students who maybe have lapsed service times. And so when we're unable to find a person to hire full-time, we will often use these types of services to make sure that students are still being served. Mr. Mike Thomas is our EC coordinator, and he works specifically in helping get these positions for our related services, and I want to give him a shout out. I think we have the highest fill rate that we've had in at least the 10 years I've been here for our related services, and so he's really been doing a lot of work to help get these positions filled. So he'll tell you more about these particular contracts.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Jackson. So we are doing better at staffing our speech-language pathology positions. However, we do need to continue to utilize the tool of contract providers when we can. We have contracted with Speech Inspirations since about 2021. They've been a wonderful partner. They've helped us ensure that we can meet the needs of our students and reduce the compensatory services that are owed. The cost of the contract would be covered under current funds, so no new funds would be necessary at this time.
I move that the Chatham County Board of Education approve the Speech Inspirations PLLC contract as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions? I think that's wonderful that we're able to provide those services. Thank you. All in favor with an aye, please? Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Thank you. And we're at Allied Instructional Services contract. So she's leaving you up there, Mr. Thomas. So you're good to go.
Thank you. Yes, Allied Instructional Services, they do provide services for students who are blind and visually impaired. This particular service provides virtual services, which I had a question about myself. And I learned today that often when students are learning to become teachers of the visually impaired, they're often told to reduce the amount of guidance that they provide students when they're learning Braille because of the sensory input. So essentially, for a student who is visually impaired or blind, the main form of instruction they have is through listening. And so the computer screen can provide that. They will have EC service providers in the room with them facilitating that process. We did use them at the end of last year when we were in a pinch, and we had to do some creative thinking again this year, and we're able to secure them. We would prefer to have in person. This is the option that we have, and we need to get our kids services. So again, the cost for this contract is also covered under existing funds, so no new funds would be necessary for this.
I move that the Chatham County Board of Education approve the Allied Instructional Services contract as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions, any discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed, like signs? Thank y'all very much. Next scheduled Board of Education meeting is Monday, October the 7th at 5:30 p.m. here in Central Services. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a couple of motions. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Thank you. Thank y'all all very much.
Silence and then
Yeah.
a couple other.
Okay, right.